Welcome to episode 12 of the Acknowledge to Action podcast. I am your host, Matthew Benko. In this episode, titled 7 Bravo, Chris Hernandez and I pick up where we left off from episode 7. Join us on this insightful discussion about transition and readjustment. Chris delves into the intricacies of leadership, sharing personal experiences from his time in the Navy, and the pivotal decision to transition to civilian life. This episode highlights the importance of building rapport, asking open-ended questions, and the art of listening to understand. Get ready for an inspiring discussion filled with insights and reflections from Chris's journey and how we share a common bond from high school to active military service and now as veterans supporting one another. Thanks for tuning in. Chris, welcome back, man. It's so good to reconnect with you. We had a really good conversation just the week prior. So let's call this episode 7 Bravo. We talked about a heck of a lot. I mean, we went with the intent of wanting to talk about transition, readjustment, but in the moment, we just stuck with, we were in the moment. We stuck with it. You talked about leadership. You talked about some of your experiences in the Navy and whatnot. I mean, we stuck with it and we went with it. So much to the fact that we just skimmed the surface on a lot of things and bringing you back to one. It's always great to talk with you and connect with you, but also to talk about that transition piece as well. So welcome back, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure, bro. I really do appreciate you inviting me back. And we got locked in on leadership. And, I believe that it's just one of those topics that in the position that you're in, the position that I was in, I mean, we could go on for hours. Anyone in the pay grades of possibly E6 and above, we could just sit there at a round table and just talk about everybody's experience and what everybody's done, what everybody's been through, how they develop their own personal leadership styles. It can go forever. But, on the topic of transition, I've been retired now since 2021, so about 3 years. Yeah, 3 years and some change now. And it's been pretty interesting, to say the least.
I'm looking forward to pulling back some of those layers. And before we transition in the transition, right? There's something that really stuck with me since we last talked about leadership and how your style and approach. What stuck with me and how I remember it is you working with those you supervised and all that, right? Your subordinates. I'm not a big fan of that word, subordinates, but it is what it is, right? You to get to know them, to build that rapport, you ask them open-ended questions. The power of the open-ended question.
Yeah. It's such a great tool, man. I mean, you can use that at home. You can use that same technique at home. If your wife's, you and your wife or whoever your significant other is, you can ask them a question that it could either be a one-word answer or, you ask that open-ended question and you're going to get more information, maybe more information than you want, but at least you'll be able to start getting some answers and it'll get you closer to the end result that you're looking for.
No, it is. And it could throw people off in a good way. It's like, wow. It's like, he asked me how I was doing instead of like, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. Okay. End of conversation. But like, hey, how are you doing? It's a whole different context of things. And I just thought about that over the last week, as far as like you taking that time to build that rapport because of the dynamic you walked into. And you talk about going from recruiting duty, then back to
the fleet. We call it the fleet. Back to the fleet.
Going back to the fleet. Okay. And then just building that rapport. So that was real interesting. And I like how you said it just doesn't work in a professional context. It works in a personal context as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and we just skimmed the surface too. I mean, we talked about you going from basic training to advanced training right into the fleet, right? And then all that stuff. And I don't remember exactly if we talked about how many times you deployed, what some of the places that took you overseas, because that's going to factor into the transition piece we talk
Yeah.
about here in a little bit. But can you just go over like what? Because I mean, it's easy in hindsight. It's like, man, we could sum up 23 years in like 23 minutes in a 23-minute conversation in some ways, right? But
Yeah.
man, there's so many things. There's so many experiences and just reflection that comes with that. So what comes to mind uh, when you think about your experiences and where the Navy has taken you, whether they're deployments, TDYs, temporary duties, and all that? Just kind of go over that, paint us a picture a little bit so we could understand. I think that'll help listeners and truly understand the significance of transition as a result of the experiences you have over a 23-year career.
Yeah. So just so I make sure I'm making sure that I understand the question, just to reflect on the deployments that I went on to get me to the transition portion, and then beyond that.
Yeah, just paint. So in your 23 years, where did the Navy take you? I mean, we talked a little bit the different jobs you had, being a
Yeah.
recruiter, and then back to the fleet. And we talked about some of the positions, but what were some of the places that the Navy took you? And there were micro transitions that you had within the Navy itself. You go from an
Yeah.
overseas location back to home station, right, or home port, right? And
Yeah.
we're constantly dealing, whether it's a 4-year enlistment or a 23-year career. That's from the day we start to the day we retire. It's a nonstop transition. Then it's a whole nother level of transition when you get out. It's a whole nother beast of a transition.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna take you back to I deployed. I had 7 deployments, and then I had a few mini deployments in there. When I say mini deployments, they were like maybe a month or two long, and
Yeah.
those were like I was out there in Louisiana for Hurricane Katrina, working a disaster relief, and I was probably out there for like a month. Like my job at that point was bringing the. We were on the beach. We set up on the beach. We had a station on the beach for LCACs and LCUs to come land, and they would transport supplies, food, water. FEMA was assisting in that effort to, help out the disaster that had occurred. Like Katrina was crazy. Like I'd never seen like actual dead bodies floating in the ocean well, not in the ocean, but basically the ocean because the water had come in and destroyed Louisiana. So that in and of itself was an experience for me because I had never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
But that was one of those things. And then Hurricane Ike, and then I ended up going to another deployment. It was Djibouti, Africa. Djibouti, Africa was a different animal also because that was the second place that I saw, a body laying on the ground for absolutely no reason. Like it was just laying there. And I'm sure that anyone with any overseas experience has potentially seen something like that. But for me, coming out of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and you know what I mean, graduating from Liberty High School is not one of those things that I was expecting to see.
Yeah.
Especially not being in the Navy. I got a bunch of Marine buddies and Army buddies that done tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and they're like, dude, that's like a common thing overseas. But for me, it was like, I'll probably never see that. I'll be on a ship or detached to, a unit that's not going to put me in that position. And where I was at was the opposite. So
Yeah.
I got to see a bunch of those things, and that leads me to my last deployment. My last deployment was I did 2 deployments. Like there was like 3-month deployments to Panama, and we had to do asset protection through the Panama Canal. So I knew that last deployment. I knew at that point in time, I had already had a shoulder surgery. This was like my final deployment. I just had my twin girls. So I'm in my 40s, having babies, my final hoorah. And it's like, holy crap, man. Like, I got a lot of shit to think about
Yeah.
before I get out. Like, this is it. And honestly, my intention on going on that deployment or going to that command, firstly, was the per diem. The per diem that was being paid at this particular command was a pretty good chunk of money. So I
Yeah.
was like, man, I need to get that, so I can get set up prior to deployment. I have a good chunk of money, or not prior to deployment, sorry, prior to retirement.
Yeah.
So when I get out, I can pad that retirement a little bit. But the Lord works in mysterious ways because it didn't work out the way I intended it to.
Yeah.
I ended up not going to the UAE. My chain of command, like I mentioned last time, my chain of command worked with me to keep me home as much as I could because my wife was a high risk pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed home and they were like, hey, man, we need another guy to come out on this deployment. And I was like, all right, I made sure, wifey had to sign off on it because if it was a no-go with her, it was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. But at the same time, my chain of command was willing to work with me. So that's one of those things that I'm grateful to this day for. And if I would not have built that rapport with my chain of command, with my work ethic and just the person that I was and the leader that I was, I don't think they would have gave me that opportunity. They would have been like, well, get in line. You're just like every other Joe Schmo. What makes you more special than anyone else?
Yeah. It's an interesting way of how you're assessing it and inventory, like, because you front loaded that work. That wasn't just something we just like Chris because Chris is a good dude. No, you put that work, you front loaded that work.
Yeah.
You communicated for yourself, like you said, your work ethic. You advocated for yourself, and going back even years before that, how you asked the open-ended questions. You had a strong baseline for what it is to communicate. How to advocate for yourself, but also too how to help others advocate for themselves as well, because communication is a two-way thing, right? When you're helping somebody communicate and advocate for themselves, you're in turn becoming a better communicator for yourself as well. And that shows you. Here you are on the tail end again. You put in the work, and the Navy invested in you, and you earned that rank and all those opportunities. But there's that general sense of, like you said, regardless of rank, whether E6, E7, E8, right? All right, well, okay, thanks for letting me know, but mission comes first. But how you handled yourself and conducted yourself, I think, is a good takeaway for people, because that's not easy to do. I mean, that's not something that happened overnight. That wasn't just like a, that took work. I mean, that took, like anything, slow and steady wins the race. But you put that work in, and I think that's a good reminder. And we got to remind ourselves of that, of how to build those networks and to put in those front load those communications. So no matter if, but a matter of when shit does go down and life throws some crazy shit at us, whether it's planned or unplanned or whatever, it's like, all right, it's all right. We talked about this, what we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's what I'm thinking as I'm reflecting on what you're saying and how important it is.
Oh yeah. And more importantly, at the E7 and above level, man, it's like, we talk about brotherhood and camaraderie and all those adjectives that we use to describe, that particular bond with, your peers. And it's like, well, I did work my ass off. I might have not been the hardest worker there, but I proved myself. I proved that I was reliable. I proved that I could run a team. I did the things that I needed to do. Even when, I wasn't like going above and beyond. I'm at the tail end of my career. I'm still in the game. I'm not giving up because I still have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And if I do try to give up early, like those junior guys are going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, this guy's a POS, man. Like, why would I respect him? Why would I even listen to anything that he has to say? So when it's my turn to step into that position, if one of the other guys is out or whatever, then they're not going to respect me. They're not going to have respect for me. They're not going to have respect for anything that I say. And now the mission just got harder. So, it's in my personal opinion is that if you don't have not so much I guess it has to be credibility. You have to have credibility. You have to obviously have knowledge in what you're doing. You also don't have to be the smartest dude in the room. And I always try to, I found myself acting like I was the smartest dude in the room, but I quickly found out, and it was always a humbling experience to know that I'm not the smartest dude in the room. There's other people that have done what I've done and probably done it longer. So, I listened to we were given one mouth and two ears. You know what I'm saying? And that's paid off for me in the long term. Listen. The more you listen, the better you're off. If you keep talking, you can't hear what's going on around you.
That's so true. And what comes to mind is we have to make an effort. I think we have to really make an effort to listen, to understand instead of listen to respond. That's I don't know when I read that or
react,
heard that.
Or to react, yeah.
Yeah, or react. But if you truly discipline yourself to listen, to understand, we could link that back to the open-ended questions. If you listen to understand who you're supervising, who you're supposed to empower, all these, like, what we do as leaders, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's where the magic can happen. And you said credibility. And as you said credibility, the first word that came to mind was consistency. I think to build credibility, we need to be consistent of who we are as a whatever individual. Call it fill in the blank with what it means for your integrity, right? It's like, all right, I knew when if I'm saying this the right way, like Chris was on deck when the fleet, whatever. It's like, dude, we had a credible chief. We could rely on him because he was consistent, he was steady, he was reliable, and it doesn't take. We don't have to have this profound sort of leadership wisdom. It's just like, no, man, you just show up, be in the moment, and people respect that. And you could really get a lot out of somebody with just being in the moment. Whether we're listening to understand, using those two ears, and giving our one mouth a break.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I really like the conversations to reflect. And it's like, wow, man, you always gain a little bit something because you get to acknowledge who you are in your style, but build on that, and also learn from Chris's style and all that. And I believe that's what we talk about, like the round table and empowering each other. We learn a little bit from each other, and that's we take a little bit from everyone we want to, and we apply ourselves.
Yeah. Even the person that you consider the shitty leader, or this guy's a terrible boss, or whatever the case may be, like, you learn something from that guy.
Yep.
Like, you learn how not to be. If you don't want to be like that person, if you don't want to take anything from his leadership style, you don't have to. That's the choice you have. Now, if you want to be exactly like this dude, well, you need to be ready to deal with the same, consequences or the same reaction that he gets. Because that's just what it's going to be. If you're trying to mirror this person as the leader that they are, and they're getting negative results, well, you're more than likely going to get negative results too. If you implement a leadership style where someone's getting results, and then you can add your own twist to it, then hell, man, make sure that twist is in a positive direction instead of just making up some BS and then kind of winging it. You know what I'm saying? Like, practice really does help. I don't want to say practice makes perfect, but the more you're consistent, the better you get. And if that's what practice means, then we'll go with practice. But consistency is part of it, man.
Yeah, and it allows you. It gives you the application. It gives you the means to better apply effective and efficient leadership.
Exactly.
Right? So leadership is it can be defined pretty broadly and in a macro sense, right?
Mm.
So can transition. So can readjustment. And that's one of the biggest reoccurring things. If veterans, if we had to kind of gravitate to one major issue that we deal with collectively as a whole, it's transition readjustment. We deal with it through our career, 23 plus years of service, whether it's a 4-year career or like you said, like you said, a 23 year career, you're dealing with constant transition and you don't even know it. And because you're kind of, you're in the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
We don't really inventory it the way we do when we get out, right? When we hang that uniform up for the last time or walk off base, walk off post with our DD-214, right? Then it's a whole different ball of wax, right? So we could sit here and talk about leadership 100 different ways. You ask 100 different people about leadership, you're probably going to get 100 different perspectives, but it's all going to kind of gravitate towards a common theme, empowering people, giving people the tools they need, etc., all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
I believe the same thing with transition and readjustment. We could talk to 100 different people and do a survey and collect all this data and metrics, and you're going to get a variety of different perspectives, but it's going to lead to, and I'll ask you, what does transition and readjustment mean to you, and how have you dealt with it? So talk a little bit how you dealt with it in the Navy to get through those 7 deployments and those, mini deployments and everything that you went through over 23 years, and then how you dealt with it since you've been out, and what differences did you experience, and how has that been for you?
So I'm gonna jump back into that last deployment because that was the point in my life where it was, like I mentioned, it was the tail end of my career, and I just knew, man. I knew that it wasn't gonna go any further than that. I still had an opportunity for promotion, but the way that things were going, I I just felt like it wasn't gonna happen. When I say that that opportunity for promotion, like I was still up for E8. I was still up for E8, so I was eligible for promotion. But I had to have the conversation with my wife too. We like I said, we just had the babies, and I'm talking about, the kids are like 3, 4. They were about 4 months old.
Oh wow!
So now she got to stay home with twins. And thankfully we were fortunate enough to, have family come by and help out and things of that matter. But like the reality of it was, it's like, I'm already at the back end of 20 plus years. Is it necessary for me to continue? The fire wasn't there anymore. Like it was, the passion that I had once was, the light was gone, or it was dimming slowly, so to speak. But it was really tough for me to come to that conclusion because this is what I've known for 20 plus years. It's what I've done. I was in a leadership position for about 20 years of that. A position of authority or whatever the case. And just in my head playing that episode over and over and over, it was like every enlistment I'm thinking about, like, damn, what if I get out now? What if I get out now? Like, what course would my life take? And in every sense of that thought, I never had a plan if I was to get out. You know what I mean? So would I have pulled the trigger if I had the plan at 10 years? If I had the plan at 13 years? I don't know. Even if I did have a plan, would I have pulled the trigger to like just get out? But at that point, 10 years, I'm halfway there. Everybody's like, oh man, you'd be stupid to get out and blah, blah, blah. Like, this job security and all this and that. It's like, yeah, that's great, but is this really what I want to do? And I commend those guys. There's nothing wrong with doing 30 years. Like, yo, do it as long as you can.
Yeah.
Shit, get that paycheck. Go see the world, man. Go do something and do what you got to do. Like I know people right now that have, I would have had what 26, almost 27 years in.
Wow.
And I know people now that have just about as much time in that, are great leaders still actively. And the Navy needs people like them. The Navy needs people like them. I know a guy just got promoted to CWO5, and we came into the Navy basically at the same time.
Was that Chief Warrant?
Chief Warrant Officer 5.
Oh,
Yep.
Chief Warrant. Okay.
Yeah, that's like for the warrant officer, that's the as high as you can go.
Okay.
And for the Navy, that's like there's far and few in between the guys that make it to that pay grade.
Yeah.
And he has the opportunity to go 30 plus years. And he's a great dude, man. He's a great dude. I learned a lot from him the times that I worked with him. And just a great guy, man. But I've met so many other people that have fallen in line with that. Not that, what am I looking for? That style of leadership. And I don't want to get jammed up in the leadership thing again, but just the same, that same type of attitude and that positivity. And it's like, oh, you know what? It sucks now, but you're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing, And I've even reached out to a few of the guys, like prior to getting out, like, what do you think I should do? What do you suggest? And they're like, oh, well, you still got some time, man. You can do this and that. And then again, in the back of my head, I'm like, damn, what about my family? I've already done this for so many years. And, my son is in his 20s now. I'm like, I missed out on a bunch of his life. Like I was still around.
Yeah.
And I was always accessible. But I don't want to say that I wasn't there. Physically, I wasn't there for those moments that, when you looked around and, I'm not familiar with how your relationship was with your dad, but for me, it wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't great. So, I wanted to make that a point in my life and in his life that I would be available to him at any time.
Yeah.
And then, once technology got better with the Facebook and FaceTime and all this Skype and all that stuff, because Skype was like one of the first ones to come out.
Yeah, Skype is, they're the OGs of video instant messaging,
Yeah. So, Skype was a great tool, man. I was like, when that came out, I was like, all right, bet. I know there's no excuse with anyone. There's no excuse with, the family, with no one. If you want to get in touch with me, like, we couldn't get that shit on the ship. We had to pull in the port and then, hit the MWR.
Yeah, then, it was a little more work back like in the 2000s. It was some work, man. You got to get in line but I'll say there's some value to that too. There's like more of like, all right, well, for me anyway, just from being deployed, like, all right, I'm in the booth. I whatever it was a combination, it was probably a DSL, a little bit above grade dial, but man, that meant something. And you're talking a lot of great points, and it's real interesting. So from the late 90s to the early 2000s, there was a lot of transition. And I'm not taking away, I think we talked about this in the last episode. So somebody served from like 1980 to 2000. We're not taking away challenging that. But it was almost like a rinse and repeat. It's like, all right, you got a couple things that, but there wasn't this like rapid technology access. Like you said, you wanted to be accessible. You said for your son, you wanted to be accessible, right? And then we experienced an era of access that has, in my opinion, no other has experienced in that respective short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, to go to your point, to there's no excuse. Like you're making a choice not to use this as an access point to make yourself accessible. To balance that out.
Yeah. Even email, bro. Email was huge.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, you talking about transition, that transition right there from snail mail to email. Ooh, crazy.
So my first duty station, I was active duty Air Force, and in 98, January, it was like mid-January, I got to my first duty station, Eielson Air Force Base, AK. all right, I'm say something here. When I saw AK, this is how ridiculous I was. I was like, oh, Arkansas. I thought it was Arkansas. Yo, they had a field day on me. I'm like,
Oh
They
no!
started laughing. Like they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
I don't remember what they said, but I opened myself up for it, and I'm opening myself up again for
yeah.
that.
Oh
They're
yeah.
getting going a lot farther. I forget what they said. You ever see a moose? Well, you're gonna see a moose, and it was that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And yeah, so where was I going with that? Oh, my roommate said something about email, and he was one of them dudes who are on the front end, early adopters of computers, right?
Yeah.
Like just
The tech guy.
like the tech guy, and he was like email, and he had 5 different sets of headphones and all sorts. He's like email. I'm like, email, what's that?
Yeah.
And that was the first, and even it probably took me 5+ years. I don't think I even got email till I got off active duty or what. I mean, I use, and even in the military, we got a .mil at some point. Nobody ever used it, but now, forget it. You can't.
That's like the
I mean,
primary means of communication.
dude, I mean, we could really go. I mean, we could, like you said, we were focusing on leadership, email, but no, seriously, like it's talk about transition and readjustment. It's interesting how these topics are coming up as far as like what we experienced and what we've come to embrace, whether it's forced upon us or from like professional military education, right?
Yeah.
Some people are early adopters and a lot are in the middle, and then you have. But I think we, over the span of 20 years, it was just like, whoa, it was like change after change after change.
Yeah.
And then you got 23 years, right? And then you inventory all this, and it's like, whoa, wow, it's a lot. And man, I thought I had a good thought, and it'll come back to me. It'll probably come to me when you start talking again, but I'm gonna use my ears and listen.
So it's funny because we were talking a little bit about it before we locked on about artificial intelligence.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this
Yep.
is another transition. Like, dude, I'm so curious to know how, if at all, it's being implemented right now, like where I used to work at, or if I would have continued my career, like how it's being used in the service. Like, I mean, I'm sure Uncle Sam's been using artificial intelligence for a long time. I don't know. I can't really speak on that, but going from letter mail to email to Skype, like we were just talking about, and then the social media thing, because it started with like
MySpace, maybe.
MySpace, yes.
Yeah, MySpace. Yeah.
MySpace, bro, the innovator, MySpace, and I mean even music, man, music.
Oh,
Napster.
Napster. Yes,
dude, it's evolved. Everything's evolved so much, man. And now we're just going into that next like tech era where you can type in Joe Rogan's voice, say some crazy stuff, and it'll come out. It's nuts, bro.
It really is, and
nuts.
Yeah, and it's here to stay. It's here to stay whether we like it or not. And I'm not saying we have to be all in and early adopt. Like we have to be tactfully cautious, tactfully optimistic about it.
Yeah.
And because there are going to be some players who use it for ill intent, like you said, to manipulate things, but there will be a lot of good with it. And as you were talking about like AI and how it just exponentially makes things more efficient and fast, it's, again, I'm no IT guy, but for the longest time, well, for the last 5-10 years, right, you Google and you search it, right? Like Google, show me what materials do I need to use to build a deck, right? And then it just, boom, it pops up with multiple websites, and you had to put the work in. All right, this website looks legit, or this video, this Bob the Builder sounds like he knows what he's doing. I'll watch him, right? AI just was like, nope, I got you. This is, boom, within seconds. It says what size deck, what, and it's just crazy. Just, I don't know how it does it, but it speaks to the rapid evolution that we've experienced and dealt with. And now it's coming back to me. Two things that are incredibly, arguably, maybe the hardest things that we deal with on a regular basis, or a few times throughout our lives, right? Meeting ourselves where we're at, especially when times are tough, especially when transition is on the horizon, and we know major transition is up over that hill, right? It's like, all right, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do I need to do? So that's variable number one. I personally think is really meeting ourselves and being real with ourselves and meeting ourselves where we're at. Also, too, like you said, come up with a plan. You said something real interesting about year 10, year 13. I don't have a plan. I think it's not because people don't want to have a plan. It's just, it takes work, it takes effort, and it takes guidance. It takes so many different things. And I got to give credit to individuals who have their life all mapped out, or so it seems. Right? We know, like, folks from high school when they're like 12 or 13, I want to go to the academy. I want to go to this, I'm like, what? Like, I'm just trying to not go to summer school again or night school again.
Right.
You're not saying I was like a bad kid, or I just don't know how to apply myself. So the ability to acknowledge, I'll say, apply ourselves in the moment. I don't think we realize how valuable that is sometimes in the moment, to set that, because when you say a plan to get out, that's pretty loaded. That's not something you just like sleep on and, all right, I got it. Yeah, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z as a result of getting out of the Navy, whether it's after 10 years, 13 years, even 20 years. Right. And all active duty, everyone gets the TAP, Transition Assistant Program, right?
Yeah.
And for most, it's just a check in the box. It's just like, all right, we provided it. Here's the tools. But I once heard, transition should start from the day you go in, right? So if you're doing a 4-year enlistment, they said within 2 years prior to getting out is when you should really start that transition process. I don't think the DoD could or would ever do that, because it's just logistically, how do you do it? But it speaks to the dynamic and just how loaded transition and readjustment, and just how plans evolve and how they change, and so many different things that come with it, right? And it's just loaded. Like, leadership is loaded, transition is loaded, readjustment is loaded, change is loaded, technology is loaded. Well, we're talking about some good things here.
Yeah. And when you talk about readjusting, man, just to kind of get our foot in the door with that one, I'm still readjusting.
Yeah.
Like since retirement, the one thing, again, we can talk about this leadership thing for days, but the one thing that comes back to my mind is every time that I even considered getting out, like, whether it was my immediate supervisor or, my chief or, my division officer or whoever it was above me that I felt actually genuinely gave a shit about me, would ask me like, yo, so you got a plan? Every time I even thought about it, every time I thought, I was like, man, shit, I'm done with this shit. I'm getting out. And they'd sit me down. They'd be like, all right, let's have this conversation. Again, closed door, relax, chill. Are you ready to get out? Like, what is your plan? And I had absolutely nothing for him. I was like, I'm going to get out, get a job. Okay, doing what? And I'm like, damn, this guy's getting real, like, personal with me. Like, back up off me. Give me some space. You know what I mean?
But the power of the open-ended question.
Right.
Like, what is do you have a plan? Yeah, I got a plan. Okay, cool. See, no, like, what is your plan? That's interesting how they did that, and that put you in a spot. Like, you felt guard and defend, because it's like, damn, all right. Yeah. You were challenged in a productive way.
Right. I wasn't ready for that question, and I didn't appreciate that at the time, early on.
Yeah.
because it was like, all right, well, they're not just asking me. They clearly, whether it been a check in the box for them or genuine, authentic, give a shit about your people. And I have worked for people that I know gave a shit about me. Facts, because I wouldn't have been in the position that I was without support.
Yeah.
I didn't get there on my own accord. I got there with the help of or with the my subordinates doing their job and me just making sure they got the job done. And then the leadership recognizing that, which helped me advance in my career. So when they asked me that early on, I was just kind of like I said, I was kind of guarded. I was like, well, I don't really know, what's the point of this? And then as time went on, when I did have those thoughts, or even if I was just, contemplating a business venture or something, they're like, well, all right, what do you want to do? And then I didn't think of it as, well, maybe this guy has a connection on the outside that he could introduce me to. Maybe this person, that networking thing, it's real.
Yeah.
And when I was guarded, I didn't really pay much attention to that, as opposed to once I got, later on in my career, I was like, well, I was thinking about doing this shit. All right, well, I got a friend that might can help you or could put you in the right direction, or you can go to, resources galore.
Yeah.
But without that mindset, it was like, nah, man, I don't really need this guy's advice, man. Like, I'm gonna give him the bare minimum so he can just leave me alone. So there has to be a mindset shift when you go to transition. If you're not ready, you need to figure it out because it's going to come quicker than you think.
Yeah.
So your mind has to already be like, you have to have that exit strategy before you even, like you said, you come in, you should already be thinking like, what's the end game here?
Yep.
When I came in, it was 4 years and I'm done. At year 4, here's what happened. Baby promoted to E5. Damn. What am I going to do now? I didn't have a plan. All right, guess I'm re-enlisting. Year 5, 6, 7, and 8. It was like, I'm kind of enjoying this. Like, why would I get out now?
Yeah.
The money was good. I was living, I had a house. I had a lot of stuff going on that was positive. Like, why give that up now? And again, I didn't have a plan if I was going to get out. Like, what was I going to do? I was going to come back home to Bethlehem. Like, I don't think me coming back home at that time was right. So, now years later, coming back home feels better because, I'm more established as an adult. I can take care of myself and my family, financially, mentally, whatever. And I'm just more prepared now than I was, 10, 15 years ago. So that transition piece, like I said, man, if you don't have an exit strategy for anything, you start a business tomorrow and you want to build this business to $1 million, that's your end game, like $1 million, and I'm selling. Well, you have an exit strategy, or you just need to figure out how to get to that.
Yeah. You could almost link it to, I don't know what the Navy core values are. I know what the Air Force core values are, but
honor, courage, and commitment.
Honor, courage,
and commitment.
Air Force, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do, right? So everything is designed to link back to that, right? Everything is an extension of those core values. So on the flip side, with transition, readjustment, let's switch up plan to transition core values, right? It doesn't have to be this long, extravagant, detailed plan, because that I'll be honest, that's hard to do in any context. You could have the best support system in the place, and if it just doesn't feel right, the plans are not the easiest to come with, and they're always going to change, right?
Yeah.
But if we have core values, and it could just be, like you said, well, what are the Navy again? Say it again.
Honor, courage, and commitment.
All right. So honor, courage, and commitment. You could apply that to your own transition and readjustment plan. Right? And then from there, you could build the plan. You could adapt and adjust the plan off of that. But you're always linking it back, like, what am I doing to meet this criteria, this baseline? And I think that could help. I think that helps. But it's never easy. It's never
No,
going to go according to plan.
nah, it
You
never
always have
does.
to you always have to be ready to, same thing tactfully in the military. It's like, hey, this is our intent, but man, between weather deviations, logistical deviations,
Yeah,
human factor
yeah.
deviation, I mean, there's so many things. It's almost like if there's no deviations, like, what, hold on a sec, what? No, I can't tell you the last time there was, like, even personally, like, wait, no traffic, not like, what's the sky's gonna fall, or the ground from just gonna fall out from under us. What does transition mean to you now? We talked about what transition was in anticipation of getting out, which was the writing was on the wall, as far as, like, generally speaking, as far as, like, okay, I'm not
Yeah,
re-enlisting and my time is up.
yeah.
What does readjustment mean for you now, and how is that different from how does it differ from the military context to being a veteran and being retired?
So the transition portion, along with the readjustment. So for me, it was I told myself, I promised myself that I was gonna maintain a routine. So what does that mean? Well, I was used to getting up early in the morning. I was used to PT, and that's really been the the base of my routine, man. Like I get up in the morning, I drop my kids off and I go PT. I go work out. And
Yeah,
when that chain gets disrupted, it's like I lose my shit. Like my whole day is just thrown off. It's just totally thrown off. Like in service, it was like, all right, we ain't PTing today because we got like an exercise or we got, a deployment coming up or whatever. Because even on deployment, we still have to maintain a certain level of fitness. But with that transition, that was one of those things that I promised myself I would do. Part of the reason of that is because I've seen so many of my fellow retirees get out and they let themselves go,
mm-hmm.
like in every aspect, man. Like I had a nasty beard when I got out because I was like, yo, I never had a nasty beard. It took me
Yeah,
24 years to grow that beard. You know what I mean? Shaving every day, with the occasional leave period, letting the
yeah,
scruff grow. But the beard, I was like, yeah, let's see how long we can let it grow. And it got, I trimmed it every now and again, but it got out of control. So I try to maintain a level beard. Nothing against
yeah,
beards. I love the beard, but anyway, um, they tend to get out of shape, man. Like
yeah,
my fellow veterans, hear me out. Stop doing that because you're affecting your health. Like
yeah,
I don't think they understand, man. Like, I get it. I get it. We no longer are being told that we have to weigh 185 pounds at 5'8" or whatever the case being. 5'9", 6 foot, you gotta weigh 200 pounds. There's no one there to hold
enforce.
us accountable.
Yeah, yeah, accountability. Yep, you're your own personal
Yeah.
accountant.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, unless you still work in some form of military, based job, like no one's telling you that you got to get up at 6 in the morning to go PT.
yeah,
You're on your own. And I see a ton of dudes just get fat and lazy. Yeah, they work their cushy post military veteran job. And then it's like, well, dude, what about your health, man? That's why, I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm pretty sure that the death rate for us is a lot sooner than whatever it is when they say, civilian life is,
yeah. It's like, yeah,
because,
you're gonna knock off a couple years.
yeah.
So this has been a recurring theme into some of the episodes. In fact, I think I've referenced it in all episodes, and it just kind of came up through a conversation. So MEPS takes on a new meaning for me. MEPS with two S's. Okay. So it's mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual well-being and maintenance. You have to do that, right? Going into the military, regardless of what branch, incredibly structured. And arguably all jobs across the board.
Mm-hmm.
You always know where to be, when to be, how to be. And if you didn't meet one of those criteria, trust me, someone was in your shit, letting you know when to be, where to be, and how to be. It's a whole different ball. It's a whole different game when you get out. So you have to be your own MEPS coordinator and keep your mind right. Keep that emotion piece, do the physical piece, the social piece to speak to your networking, and the spiritual thing. And that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And that's pretty powerful too. So I remind myself of like, what am I doing? What are my MEPS? What's the focus point today or at this point in this segment in my life, right? I could be going through a period where I need to give my mental health my undivided attention, or the majority of my focus, I should say. Same thing with emotional, mental could be very closely linked. But physical, no, I need to get I'm ever since Thanksgiving, I've been eating turkey dinner. You know what I mean? I've been eating like Thanksgiving dinner every night for the last 2 years. That's going to catch up with you. And it just serves it's a reminder for me. Be like, all right, this is my new MEPS. My new MEPS: mental, emotional, physical, social, spiritual.
Yeah, but before I got out, like I said, I promised myself that my physical health, my mental health, and just being readily available to my family, man. Like those were the biggest things for me. And I was like, if I get a job out here and they can't work with my schedule, then I guess I won't work for them. Because there's something out there for everyone. And I don't want to take away the fact that, I don't want to make it seem like it's easy for everyone to do what I just said, like, go work out. Obviously, we all have whatever we're dealing with post-military, whether it be physical issues, mental issues. This is just me. This is what I do. That's what works for me. The gym works for me. Going on a walk works for me. 10,000 steps every day works for me. It's for my mental health, my sanity. Like when I don't crack 10,000 steps, I'm almost disappointed in myself. Which is, it kind of contradicts what I just said. But I know that tomorrow's a new day and I have the opportunity to do it again, with the grace of God willing.
That you just provided some really amazing advice, because I was going to ask you, hey, what advice do you have for transitioning veterans, whether they're approaching getting out of the military or maybe having a hard time or just need some help? And well, what else would you like to add to that? Because that's really like you shared what works for you. So share some of that Chris wisdom on us to get out there in the world, so whoever's listening could be like, all right, I got this, and I'm going to put this tool in my toolbox to help me with my transition or my upcoming transition or this my struggling readjustment.
Yeah, gotcha. So my advice would be is if you have a hard time, doing something on your own or getting motivated on your own or whatever the case being, find a group, find a Facebook group, find a local group in your hometown, find a battle buddy. If you know somebody that's already retired or getting ready to retire as well, and you guys are from the same area, guys or girls, find someone, find something, because in my experience, just being in the military, I feel like I need to belong to something, to a group, or be connected with someone like this. This here for me, reconnecting with you after so many years of not like actually seeing you, it's another form of therapy for me, because I know that you're not that far away. And I know that if I give you a call, you're going to answer the phone and be like, what's up? And if I got some shit going on, you'll probably drop whatever it is that you're doing, like I would do for you, because I know right now, and knowing veterans before me that have retired or gotten out after 4 years, like I know the struggles that they go through. And I also offer myself to the homies that retired before me, like, hey man, if you ever need anything, just give me a call, because it's real, man. That mental health shit, like, people kind of bash it and talk bad about, like, oh, anxiety, depression, blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't know what that person's going through.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard it is for that person to get out of bed every morning, how hard it is for them to get a task accomplished. Like, we don't know unless we ask. We ask those open-ended questions, we're going to find out. But, that would be my advice, man. Find a group, find something that aligns with your beliefs, and people that you can connect with, that are good people, or you assume they're good people. But that's probably the best advice I can give, man. And just get your ass to the gym, get a treadmill, get a something. Treadmills could be pricey, but just move, man. You just gotta move. You just gotta move.
You gotta keep that mind right. You gotta keep that body right. You gotta stay active, man. You gotta stay in motion.
Yeah.
If I had the ability to drop a mic right now, I would. This is a good mic drop, man. Like, seriously, that is some powerful stuff. And I know what you just said, I've thought almost to the exact word what you sense. Like you said, you experience it. What you did, the power of acknowledgement, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the Acknowledge to Action podcast, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why I picked acknowledge, the power of acknowledge. It started with me being a C-130 Loadmaster, career enlisted aviator. Acknowledge. I probably said acknowledge operationally thousands of times, because how many times I run a checklist? You run checklists and you say it sometimes, not 100 times on a flight, but something a lot. You say it a lot. Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, acknowledge, the power of acknowledge. Because if we don't acknowledge an operational checklist, ain't gonna happen after that, nor should it.
Yeah.
Because that means somebody's out, somebody's incapacitated, their ears aren't dialed in, they're something's off, comms are down, or the mind isn't dialed in.
Yeah.
So when you acknowledge transition for what it is, readjustment, and you acknowledge for what you're going through and what you need help with and what you identify as a challenge, that is so important. That just opens up that's the critical step you need to take to embrace the journey. You got to embrace that journey, that uphill battle. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. But you're not alone on it. You're not by yourself. You're not on an island of your own. It may feel that way, like in our heads, because we're guarded and we don't want to be a burden to anybody else. But like you said, Chris, get out. Like we're social. Going back to that MEPS thing, the social piece is so critical. Whether some people gravitate towards the online social thing, there's a lot of value in that. I know, people now, it's just an online social. No, man. If there's a return on investment for that for somebody, great, do it. If it's an online gaming community, it could be anything. Some people are more face to face. There's veteran groups, there's support groups. The people bash the VA a lot too, because it's a beast. It is. But once you get through the door, there's a lot of ways to connect that way too. And you just have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to put the work in, and you have to recognize it's going to be an uphill battle a lot of the times too.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be that way all the time.
No, it's just, for me personally, it's like when I first transitioned, I was coming off of bicep surgery, man, because I tore my bicep prior to getting out, and it was, that was depressing on its own. Like, my biceps never gonna be what it was, and I have to deal with that. So, my mental health was already kind of, effed, so to speak, prior to getting out. So on top of getting ready to get out, I'm dealing with physical therapy. I'm dealing with like, wow, what's the rest of my life going to be with my arm like this? I got babies I got to carry. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was really tough. So when I came out here, I joined the local VFW. I'm not going to act like it was the greatest thing that I did. I went there, met some people, and that's just what I did. I try to connect myself with other veterans or other people that can relate to what I've been going through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only way we can survive, man. Like if you harbor those feelings and you just don't say nothing, then well, we just became another statistic. And
So
it's
true.
so common. It's so common for us, man. It's so common for us for something like that to happen. Well, Johnny got out a year ago and he's been downhill ever since then. Was anybody checked on Johnny? Oh yeah, he killed himself the other day. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Or he, for the purposes of the video, I apologize for using that word, but he unlived himself, and it's sad, man. It's like, damn, it can happen to anybody, but
Yeah.
but for us, it's one of those things, and I see a lot of guys. It's like it's an ego thing for them. Like, I don't need to be a part of that. I don't need to. I ain't hanging out with
Yeah.
these goofy ass veterans, man. Like, get out of here. And I felt that way at first too, but for me to get out of the funk that I was in, the gym, my physical health, and then my mental health, man, because the physical health is what got my mental, back in order.
Yeah.
And thinking right and thinking like, all right, well, I need to meet some people. I need to meet some people that have similar interests and have done what I've done or done what similar things that I've been through.
The weight of our experiences will always be there. And I'm not about to say anything profound, here, because I've heard it, but I just don't remember exactly the exact way it's quoted. But it's not the weight itself; it's how we carry it, right? So we need each other to learn techniques and strategies to carry that weight a little more efficiently, so it's not so much a burden. So whether it's the metaphorical wheelbarrow or an automated way to carry that weight instead of carrying it all on our shoulders on our own, we don't have to carry that weight ourselves exclusively on our own. And it's important that we acknowledge that. The whole acknowledge to action mindset is acknowledge, accept, process, plan, action. Acknowledge is one thing, but then accept, that's a whole nother beast in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that's where we need help. But like, what the hell does that even mean? Accept?
Yeah.
No, I mean, only you and you alone know when you accept it. But then that's when you get, all right, I'm gonna process a little bit more. Then you can get to the plan. Going back to what you said, a plan. It's like, all right, acknowledge, accept, process is a huge piece to come up with a formidable plan before you take action. And that's just what this kind of, that's not what kind of, that's what this does represent. These conversations just reinforce that, and it puts more tools in our toolbox, and it helps us it keeps us calibrated. We are extremely complex machines, and we have to calibrate ourselves. We got to put the work in. We got to put that preventative maintenance. There's aftercare maintenance. So we got to put in the work. But the more maintenance you do, the more productivity you do. So I think that on that note, I think that's a good that's like a good mic drop, right? And I'm dropping this mic.
Yeah.
So man, Chris, I can't thank you enough. I mean, this was episode 7 Bravo, and man, we might even have a episode 7 Charlie if we keep going, right?
Yo, Charlie.
But you're always welcome here. I mean, this meant a heck of a lot. Picking up where we left off 23 years ago. I mean, there's a couple conversations we had, over the course of that time. But
yeah,
man, but just truly reconnecting with you has been incredible. And I really hope this message reaches a lot of people and motivates them and helps them kind of meet themselves where they're at, and help them come up with a plan based off the criteria that they need to. So yeah, and because this is 7 Bravo, I'm gonna ask you to drop another song for the Acknowledged Action playlist.
Oh,
I know you had a little.
snap.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Dang,
because before,
man.
yeah. Got to.
Yo,
This playlist is getting legit, man. It's building up.
did
Nice.
you listen to that song?
Not yet. I just logged on to Spotify earlier today to add it, but I have it added. No, I'm sorry.
So you created a list already? A playlist?
I take that back because I'm like, this is like Back to the Future sort of stuff. So I always add the song the day I produce. So this we're recording this episode's like 3 weeks out.
Mhm.
So when I add the Spotify list, I usually do it the week of me producing and putting the final edits on this. So, but I have it written down. I have it in my queue. I am gonna listen to it, but it's gonna be on the playlist here very, very soon.
All right. Since you put me on the spot, but real quick, I did want to say I wanted to mention, to go along with all the things that we spoke about, like the readjustment and transition, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Are you familiar with that book?
I heard it, and I did not read it. I'm not super familiar with it, but it is good. In addition to the music playlist, I'm gonna put on. Man, maybe we could. Man, I think we just started something here. A book list.
Do a book list, bro.
Boom.
Book list. So Atomic Habits. He goes over systems. Like, we set goals, and big goals, little goals, but the systems in the goal setting process. It's a good book, man. I didn't read it. I listened to it on Audible, because I'm on the road. Like, it takes like half an hour to get everywhere around here.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you're unfamiliar with. It's just the application portion of, you know what I mean? You're used to we're regimented because we're in the military. So in the transitioning, it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do? So this book, I think, will help someone if they're not really focused on what that next step is. I think that Atomic Habits will help them create that next step or figure out how to get to the next step, just because of the application that James Clear talks about in that book.
Dude, I like that. I like that a lot. Not only do I look forward to reading that book, because my goal, and it's, I mean, the way life. I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
If I could read one book a month, I'm that's like super incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to read. I'm finishing up Dune. I get into the sci-fi a lot. I'm finishing up Dune. I want to finish reading Dune before I watch the movies, which I heard are really good, by the way. But
oh yeah.
I alternate between sci-fi and those leadership books. So yeah, I'm absolutely going to give that my undivided attention after I get through Dune. I got like 150 pages left. Dude, that's a beast. Frank Herbert, 850 pages, dude. Thing's a beast. It's not within arm's reach. So, but all right, we're going to start a book list.
So here's real quick another, and I said real quick already, but an example of that is, like, we use the bathroom, right? You sit down and you take your phone into the can and hang out and scroll, doom scroll until you absolutely, your brain just fries. So instead of doing that, you can take a book into the bathroom or leave the book in the bathroom, so that when you sit on the shitter, you're more likely to pick up the book than you are your phone.
And I like that. So, and okay.
Like I have a book now everywhere that I know I'm going to sit for a certain amount of time. So if I find myself grabbing my phone and I start doing the doom scroll, you have to have that in you, to that discipline in you, to be like, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna grab this book. And obviously the book's got to be something that you're interested in. Like I told you last episode, I've recently gotten back into like sales negotiations and just like business stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's
business, self-development, professional growth and all that stuff. So I have a book somewhere, wherever I'm going to sit, and that's what he teaches in that book. or he shows in that book. So the application, it's just crazy, man.
It sounds like you're setting yourself up for production. So whether you're sitting in your favorite chair, like say sun porch, all right, you're on your rocker. Oh, there's Dune, right? Or your science fiction movie, or the book that you're wanting to get through.
Yeah,
I like that, man. That's good.
It's a good book, man. If you get a chance to, take it with you to the shitter, man. And
no, I'm gonna do that.
I'm
so
trying to find this song, bro.
Oh, you're looking for the song?
Yeah, I didn't have one off the top of my head. I kind of go through my workout playlist.
Are you in Napster right now?
Bro, I don't think they even have that app anymore, man.
That was good.
If it was ever an app.
It was. Then they had a CD for a while, and then it was. Yeah, that was some crazy. That was still AOL days, American Online, and
I'm gonna go back to the wrestling genre, man. Those guys just have like incredible theme songs. This one is called it's called Judas by Fozzy.
Okay, Judas by Fozzy.
Yeah, it's Chris Jericho is the wrestler.
Oh, and he had some intense opening, man. He was. Yeah, he had some energy to him, man.
Yeah. He's great, man. I enjoy watching that guy wrestle. He's still wrestling too. He's like been wrestling for like 30 years, man. He's getting to that Ric Flair status.
Dude, that could be a whole like veterans meet. That's a whole nother story. Like MWR stuff. I heard wrestlers were the best dudes to work with as far as like traveling, getting them over to an overseas military installation. Like they were just like cool, legit dudes to be around. I was never around them. Like I wasn't like the MWR team.
Yeah.
But I remember I met a dude. I mean, that's what he did. He might have been Navy, and he was talking about. I'm not going to talk to other genre of sports who were very difficult people, but he said, wrestlers were the best. And I think it was,
they love veterans, man. They love military. Yeah. They're all about it.
He just, it was odd. Like, and those guys are beasts, so they're lifting their own luggage and whatnot, but but I wonder how somebody like that doing that for 30 years, Chris, if you're listening, Jericho, right? If you're listening, reach out to us. We'll talk to you about transition and readjustment. All right, we got you.
Mental health, leadership. Hell yeah.
So, Chris, hey, this is good stuff, man. I look forward to staying connected. Next time I see you, it's gonna be in person, and it's gonna be real soon. Like you said, we're about an hour away, whatnot. But man, I can't thank you enough, man. We talk about leadership, transition, readjustment. We got a little nostalgic, with all the changes we went through and dealt with. And man, and we could even talk about all the game systems that we went through. We went through cartridges to now they're all online. But anyway, we could really go on and on about that. But man, all seriousness though, thank you, brother. I really appreciate you, and I look forward. This has meant a lot to me, reconnecting with you and having these conversations.
Yeah, man, absolutely, brother. I appreciate it again. Thank you so much. I'm sure. Maybe we could do a side-by-side next time.
No, we can, man. I know that's like I said, this is going to grow. Just like everything we went through, dial up to now Fios internet, like same here. Acknowledge to Action podcast is going to evolve and grow and offer. I'm even thinking about doing I think it's called a live stream. So that way, once this gets traction, veterans can call in and have live, because there's something about in the moment conversation versus, and I'll tell you this, I don't really edit a lot. I mean, I put some finishing touches. I had some music, on the front end and the back end, but I don't take any script out unless there's something like we really fumbled over or something that just there's a technology glitch. I don't do a lot of edits. I don't. I just add to make the quality sound the best that I can do. But with that said, this is a recorded conversation, but I think it's StreamYard. It's called StreamYard. That's where we go live, and then people call in, click the link, and we just have legit in the moment conversations, and it's recorded for other people who can't make it. So maybe that's something we could put together, man. Like just Just because nowadays sometimes I think it's tough to get a physical location for people to show up, right? But
Yeah.
if we start off with like a StreamYard, get some talk about being consistency, getting some credibility, and you build
Yeah.
off of that. So between the music playlist, the book list, and some streaming, we're on to something here, man. Let's start putting a team together.
Yeah, man.
I mean that. And let's put it out there now for the universe and the World Wide Web to hear. All right.
The World Wide Web.
World Wide Web.
With that dial-up service, buddy.
All right. So, but all right, Chris. Hey, man. Until next time.
God bless, brother.
Yo, man. All right, man.
See you in the next one.
All right. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Acknowledge to Action podcast, where Chris and I continued our discussion on transition and readjustment. Today, we delved into various facets of leadership, the intricacies of military life, and the pivotal moments that come with the decision to transition. We explored the essence of building rapport, the art of asking open-ended questions, and the importance of listening to truly understand. Our conversation highlighted the challenges of balancing family life with military duties and the critical role of effective communication, consistency, and self-reflection in navigating these transitions. We shared our experiences of moving to our first duty stations, the evolution of technology in the military, and the significance of creating a well-thought-out transition plan. We also touched on the integration of artificial intelligence, the necessity of maintaining holistic well-being, and the power of having a support system during the transition to civilian life. Chris and I underscored the importance of belonging, acknowledgement, and finding purpose and connection post-military. As we reflect on the journey and evolution of this podcast, we are reminded of the continuous growth and connection that drives us. We hope you found value in today's episode and look forward to continuing this conversation in future episodes. Don't forget to check out our playlist on Spotify, where the songs dedicated from guests symbolize the unwritten journeys we all embrace. Wherever you are in your journey, you are not alone. Until next time, this is 7 Bravo on Acknowledge to Action.